Good afternoon. This is Metropol News at 1. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Now, National Treasury and Planning Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has this morning launched the 2022-2023 financial year and medium-term budget preparation process. Treasury is fast-tracking the process, which usually starts in September to allow time for parliamentary approval before Parliament is dissolved ahead of the forthcoming general elections. Now, to sustain the country's debt, Treasury has asked working groups to prioritize implementation of key development projects including healthcare, private sector, ICT, manufacturing and transport over the next 3 years to boost economic recovery. With global economy projected to grow at 6% this year, Yatani has however warned that the country's full recovery is not assured due to the uncertain future, delays in vaccination programs, increasing debt levels and rising inflationary pressures.
On the domestic scene, the prospect for Kenya's economic recovery will center on the progress of vaccination effort, macroeconomic stability, and implementation of the projects under the Big Four plan. We remain hopeful that our economy will rebound to above 6% over the medium term from a growth of 0.6% in 2020. In the next 3 financial years, we shall therefore be pursuing an investment-led economic recovery strategy that will focus on restoring the economy to a strong growth path, creating jobs and economic opportunities across all regions of the country with a view to tackling social and economic inequalities.
The next budget should target completion of ongoing projects. To this end, as a chairperson of the Budget and Appropriation Committee, I will be asking our technical team, the Parliamentary Budget Office, to keep an eye on whether during the implementation of the current financial year budget, there will be reallocations from the projects that are 60% complete to new ones or to those that are about 20% complete and below.
Now, Kenya and Tanzania have agreed to harmonize their efforts in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Kenya's Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and his Tanzanian counterpart, Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, held bilateral talks in Nairobi this morning to align their coronavirus protocols. The meeting was a follow-up to a directive issued by Presidents Uhuru Kenyatta and Samia Suluhu when they held talks in early May this year. Now, meanwhile, Kenya's COVID-19 numbers are swelling day by day, with governors now raising the alarm over the worsening situation in many counties. In the last 24 hours, Kenya reported 1,335 new infections from a sample size of 7,605, translating to a positivity rate of 17.5%. Kenya's total confirmed cases now stand at 206,691. In terms of county distribution, Nairobi led the tally on Wednesday with 647 new infections. Other counties that recorded high cases include Nakuru with 86, Kiambu with 83, Kajiado with 59, Mombasa 53, Nyandarua 52, Makueni 45, Machakos 40, Kirinyaga 36, Kilifi 27, Uasin Gishu 26 and Murang'a 25. Now, slightly over 1,000 more patients have conquered the virus, pushing cumulative recoveries to 191,188. At the same time, Kenya has hit another grim milestone after the death toll crossed the 4,000 mark, with the Ministry of Health announcing 30 more fatalities. So far, 4,025 people have lost to the COVID-19 battle in the country. The World Health Organization is now calling for a moratorium on COVID-19 booster shots to enable poorer countries to catch up in vaccination rates. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom wants the halt on third shots to be in place until at least the end of September. According to the global health body, halting booster shots helps achieve the WHO's goal to vaccinate at least 10% of the population in every country by September this year, protecting healthcare workers and the vulnerable. Dr. Adhanom asked vaccine producers to prioritize COVAX, the program set up last year to equitably distribute vaccines around the world. The UN agency is also concerned that while many high-income countries have administered almost one dose for every person, low-income countries have only been able to administer 1.5 doses for every 100 people.
So far, more than 4 billion vaccine doses have been administered globally. More than 80% have gone to high and upper middle income countries, even though they account for less than half of the world's population. I understand the concern of all governments to protect their people from the Delta variant. But we cannot and we should not accept countries that have already used most of the global supply of vaccines, using even more of it, while the world's most vulnerable people remain unprotected. We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries. Accordingly, WHO is calling for a moratorium on boosters until at least the end of September to enable at least 10% of the population of every country to be vaccinated. To make that happen, we need everyone's cooperation, especially the handful of countries and companies that control the global supply of vaccines. It's no understatement to say that the course of the pandemic depends on the leadership of the G20 countries. 1 month from now, the G20 health ministers will meet ahead of the G20 summit in October. I call on them to make concrete commitments to support WHO's global vaccination targets. We call on vaccine producers to prioritize COVAX.
Now, it is good news for conservancies in the Masai Mara game region after they received a huge boost of 660 million shillings as COVID-19 mitigation funds to support their operations after the pandemic ravaged the tourism sector. German ambassador to Kenya, Annette Gunther, announced that the funds will go towards supporting the landowners, rangers and general conservation in the Mara ecosystem. She, however, asked the beneficiaries to ensure that they utilize the funds for a sustainable conservation of the tourist jewel. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala said the funds will go a long way in supplementing the ongoing economic stimulus program the government was carrying out in the 160 conservancies countrywide.
The government today is here with the government of Germany and we collaborated together because Masai Mara is not an ecosystem that belongs to the Masai people or the Kenyan people. This is a global ecosystem and needs to be protected. We are doing this conservation agenda not for ourselves only, but for the global community. And we need to protect it by all means. And now we have many challenges. We have interests of different land use interests. We have the challenge of climate change. And then we have the challenge of the pandemic.
The best land use for this landscape is the conservancies. And secondly, conservancies are the lead agencies in the protection of the wildlife and conservation of the natural resources of this ecosystem. And that is why we must support them so that we can protect our wildlife.
Now, Kenyan low-cost carrier Jambojet will commence flights between Nairobi and the Democratic Republic of Congo city of Goma next month. The airline will start by operating 2 weekly flights on the route and gradually increase to 4 flights. In the same expansion plan, Jambojet says it will also fly 4 times a week to the coastal destination of Lamu from Nairobi and the Moi International Airport in Mombasa from mid next month. In April this year, the national carrier Kenya Airways inked a 2-year codeshare deal with Congo Airways in a bid to create additional connectivity to the two airlines' networks. Jumbojet is a subsidiary of KQ that kicked off operations in 2014. Now, a survey by Stanbic Bank shows business confidence improved to a 5-month high in July, with nearly a third of businesses providing a positive forecast for output over the coming 12 months. Growth momentum in Kenya's private sector slowed again at the start of the third quarter of the year as surveyed businesses reported weaker expansions in output, new orders, employment and purchasing. Now, the Purchasing Managers Index survey further shows that the cost of inflationary pressures rose to a 16-month high as tax changes resulted in a sharp uptick in purchase prices. Businesses that saw an increase in new order volumes often pointed to an improvement in cash flow and increased marketing activity. On the other hand, some firms reported losing customers due to the ongoing effect of the pandemic. At the same time, with sales growing slowly, now the rate of job creation among Kenyan firms eased to the softest in 3 months. Cost pressures accelerated sharply at the start of the third quarter as businesses found that tax changes led to a marked increase in the price of imported goods. The Wild Animal Protection has called on national and international fast food companies to review their policies to include chicken welfare. In a report dubbed the Pecking Order, only 4 fast food brands assessed globally, including KFC, Subway, Starbucks and Burger King, are signed to the Better Chicken commitment. Among their demands include the end of close confinement of chicken, provision of at least 6 hours of constant darkness per day, meaningful enrichment and slow growth breed in all the regions including Africa. According to Dr. Victor Yamo, the farming campaigns manager at the organization, lack of animal welfare is directly linked to consumers' health and should therefore be taken seriously.
Animal welfare is driven around what is known as the fundamental freedoms for animals. And part of those freedoms are around things like ensuring the animal is fed well and it has good wholesome water. If the animal is fed with any product that has anything that is not good for that animal, things like antibiotics, when farmers give antibiotics because they want to mask poor welfare, or things like mycotoxins because the milk that is used in water, they say it cannot be given to humans, but can be given to chickens. If the policies are not followed, and that's why as an organization we're pushing organizations like retailers and fast food restaurants to look at it, you end up with poor quality products that then has an impact, a negative impact on your health.
Now, Standard Chartered Bank has posted a 37% pre-tax profit from the half-year ending 30th June 2021. The lender says this growth was bowed by improved loan impairments, strong underlying business momentum and good progress across the bank's strategic priorities. The bank further announced an additional share buyback program together with the resumption of the interim dividend payment. In the Africa and the Middle East region, the bank has recorded its highest half-yearly operating profit over the last 5 years. Income remained flat year-on-year and 1% higher on a constant currency basis despite being impacted by rate cuts and currency devaluation. The bank's income in Africa grew by 6% on a constant currency basis, driven by the digital banking momentum in consumer, private and business banking and deal pipeline. Now, East Africa Breweries plans to onboard over 800 bars in its second phase of the Raising the Bar initiative. The initiative, launched in December 2020, seeks to support bars and restaurants through bartender training, equipment and other with the view of enhanced compliance with the set COVID-19 pandemic safety measures and protocols. This coming just a day after Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala threatened to name and shame bars and restaurants for non-compliance to COVID-19 protocols. Speaking during the launch, EABL Commercial Director Joel Kamau said over 95 bars and eateries have been retrofitted with COVID-19 safety elements since the first phase.
And so we set 300 million Kenya shillings aside and we started the Raise the Bar campaign. And Raise the Bar campaign was a campaign that is in Nairobi. And we said that having 40,000 outlets and more than 300,000 people who every single day wake up depending on our industry, how do we assist them? And as at today, more than over 100 bars are fully fledged and finished and refurbished. And actually, we can confidently say that those bars are compliant with the COVID-19 protocols as at now. And say we want to enter into phase 2 starting in September. We are targeting to have 850 bars joining us in this, and the registration will be open immediately in September. And what are the 3 things that we are doing in Raise the Bar phase 2? 3 things. Number 1 is we are enhancing the space in the outlets. The second thing is we are ensuring that we are having hygiene enhancement in all those bars. So we are having menus that have less contacts, online reservations as you reserve, cashless payment, to ensure that as you come even into the bar, you have as little contact with the equipment, with the people, with the payment solutions.
Part of our commitment to make sure that the consumers who we invite into the outlets, first of all, are safeguarded, they maintain social distancing, and we are not viewed as an industry that is not protecting its people during the pandemic.
Let's now look at how the forex market is performing. Now, oil prices have declined towards $70 a barrel as more countries imposed fresh movement restrictions to counter a surge in COVID-19 cases. Japan is poised to expand emergency restrictions to more regions, while China, the world's second largest oil consumer, has imposed restrictions in some cities and cancelled flights, threatening fuel demand. Now, Brent crude oil futures dropped by 38 cents to $70 a barrel after dipping below the threshold for the first time since July 21st. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell by 34 cents to $67.81. In the United States, the world's biggest oil consumer, COVID-19 cases hit a 6-month high, with more than 100,000 infections reported on Wednesday. Crossing borders, Ghana is planning to put digital currency into trial use in the upcoming September to reduce its reliance on cash, according to the country's central bank. Now, analysts say the introduction of the digital currency can spur the local economy to grow. The mobile money introduced by the telecommunication companies has been widely accepted in Ghana over the last few years. The central bank says transactions in the first half of this year hit nearly $80 billion. Analysts say much remains to be done to make it easier for Ghanaians to accept ECEDI in financial services.
In the long term, it's going to help us have a cashless society, facilitate international transaction, and then reduce cost of printing, and then ensure transparency in our financial transactions. Infrastructure is very poor. We need to invest in infrastructure, millions of dollars. Government needs to do it. The service providers must also release funds to do it. And then the cost of internet service provision is also high. It has to come down so that everybody would have the interest in taking part or assessing it.
Now, the UNICEF is warning that millions of people in South Sudan are suffering for famine. Now, let's get more from CGTN.
Rose Ngero is a 20-year-old mother of 3. Her family is displaced due to intercommunal conflict. The family now depends on food aid and eats only 1 meal a day. Rose's young child is malnourished and sick.
My child is sick. She's vomiting. She has diarrhea. The doctor told me that the child must have eaten something dirty. I think the problem is from water. We have food given by aid agencies, but there is no clean water.
UNICEF says 8.3 million people in South Sudan need humanitarian aid. Years of civil war displaced farmers and denied them opportunity to cultivate. From 2018, relative peace returned to the country, but relentless rains led to flooding in the past 2 years, washing away crops and livestock. Now it is rainy season in South Sudan, and most of the northern parts of the country are again flooding. UNICEF says more than 300,000 children are expected to suffer from severe malnourishment and could die if treatment is not provided. South Sudan's government says it is aware of the acute food shortages and that it is working to address the challenges children are facing.
Breastfeeding rates since the independence, it is not enough, because 3 out of 10 children today are still being denied of their right of breastfeeding and the start of life.
But right now, for women like Rose Ngero, their only hope is to rely on support from aid agencies.
Sad story there. With that, we finish this edition of Metropol News at 1. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. From the rest of the team here at Metropol TV, have a wonderful afternoon.